On today's show, who has the most to gain in the NBA this season if it all goes right for him? I think it's Ja Morant. We'll tell you why on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You're locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On NBA your first listen today. With the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. like the video on YouTube and comment anything below.
When did we get this? What is this? Who put this together?
You like this intro?
This is dirty. Play it back. Run the song back. This is not your average iTunes, Spotify intro. What is this? Goodness gracious. This is heat. I like this. Think about if your team gets a win, y'all. The Pacers get a win over the Bucks again. Tyrese Halliburton game winner. And you get to hear this jam. Giannis gets another 60 ball in Madison Square Garden. Jumps over somebody else.
You'll feel that one. Today's episode is brought to you by...
When Luka Doncic hits that game winner over the Lakers in LA, I can only imagine how the music's going to hit.
I can just imagine the one over Gobert in game 2. One was... You're feeling good after that one.
Mm-hmm.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And joining me, he's vibing out with the music right now. There's Beyonce, there's Cher. He wants to be known by one name. It's Swipa from Locked On Nuggets. What you got for me?
What's up, Nick, man? I'm so excited for this episode. We get to talk about one of my favorite players, man. And I think somebody who's about to be on an absolute revenge tour this upcoming season. I can't wait to get into it.
We'll talk about some players who have the most to gain. I want to talk about Jalen Green a little bit later and talk about how he has a lot to gain for the Rockets, like financially. He's throwing up the. I ran out of music. Now we ran out of intro music. Jalen Green's got a lot to gain. We got some other players. Tatum, we think has a lot to gain actually this season. We'll also play Count It Up, where we count all the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Joe Mazzulla on Locked On Celtics going viral right now. So we'll talk about that. But let's start here, Swipa. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. When I started to think about who has the most to gain, that was sort of our prompt today, as we were like, all right, who has the most to gain in the NBA? I started to think about, all right, whose stock is really low right now? If we did a stock watch, stock up, stock down thing, I think that Ja Morant's stock is kind of low right now. It feels like a lot of players have overpassed him. Feels like Anthony Edwards, his star and his personality and all that, his game seemed to have overshadowed Ja Morant standing in the league. I think if Ja comes back, he had the suspension last year, then the torn labrum, only played 9 games last season. He comes back, makes the playoffs with the Grizzlies. They are, win a first round series, possibly win a second. They go to the Western Conference Finals, something like that. All of a sudden, we're putting Ja back into those conversations. I think he has a lot to gain this season if it goes well.
Yeah, I think people are asleep on Ja for some reason, and I think maybe it's just because of the knucklehead stuff and why he got in trouble. But Ja Morant, before Anthony Edwards took this leap, Ja Morant was the media darling. Like, it was him. Right. He was the one, this is the future superstar. This is the future, maybe the best guard in the league at some point in time. And Ja Morant, high flyer, man, he's a really good playmaker. I mean, he led the league in paint points as a guard. I think Ja Morant is going to be special this year. I'm so excited to see him with a real center again, like he had with Steven Adams. I think Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bain, Marcus Smart, G.G. Jackson, they just got him. They got a really, really nice roster. I think Taylor Jenkins is one of the best coaches in the NBA, and he's been able to make really, truly great work out of a lot of injuries in the last couple of years or suspensions on his side. Ja Morant, for me, is the one that could win over the public easily because Ja Morant plays such an exciting brand of basketball. He's a very intelligent player as well. And again, if his shooting, let's say, just continues to improve and he's able to find this groove, he gets back to that 25, 5, and 6 level player that we know him to be. Ja Morant's going to be in all NBA discussions. He might even be cracking people's top 10 MVP discussions as well. And to go from where he was to being able to get his name back at the top of the league like it was prior to the suspension, Ja Morant, I think, legitimately has the most to gain if he takes this young Memphis Grizzlies team with its rookie center and a really good power forward, but a slew of role players that are all kind of suited for their role. If he's able to help them get into the playoffs and look like one of the contending teams in the Western Conference, I think that his Q rating publicly is going to soar higher than anybody else in the league.
And that's the thing with him, is that there are some players, we'll talk about Jalen Green a little bit later, where he has got a lot of monetary, like financial gain that he can gain this season he's a restricted free agent. We got to figure out what's going on with him throughout this season. But with Ja Morant, it's the Q rating. It's the how do we talk about you? It's how, you're regarded in conversations when we talk about, all right, who's a top 10 player in the NBA? I feel like at times Ja Morant's name would come up in those conversations. It has not happened over the last year or so with Ja Morant. And maybe it's because of, like you mentioned, some of the off the court things that got him the suspension. It's the, is he unserious about this? Is he, all that? But he was 7th in MVP in 2022. He was NBA All NBA second team, locked on NBA, All NBA second team. He made the All-Star team 2 years in a row. He was most improved player that year. And right now it seems like his stock and his value are down in the gutter. And you mentioned the team itself. Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart. This team has a lot of players all of a sudden. And the Zach Edey portion of it is really interesting. We were talking about this a little earlier. He could be like the Derek Lively that the Mavericks got, where they're down one season. This happens to a bunch of teams. You're down one season, so then you add somebody, and he's exactly what your team needed. And if he can just fill that role, they need a rim protector, somebody to just push Jaren Jackson out of the paint a little bit. Hey, just go to your natural role as a 4. If he can just do that, fulfill his role. Hopefully they don't ask a ton out of him. Like hopefully they're not asking him to play 30 minutes a game or something like that in that role. But if they just ask him to fill that role and to play that spot, then this team could be really, really dangerous. Like, who wants to play this Grizzlies team? We've got a backcourt of Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, and then you've got to deal with the bigs.
Yeah, look, I think that they're going to be so physical as well. Like, they're going to be such a dynamic team. And, they're going to have to figure out their floor spacing stuff. They're always going to have shooting issues, I think, and especially with Edey and Jaren Jackson on the court. I mean, unless Jaren Jackson is shooting like 42% from 3 on 6 attempts a game, I mean, they're still going to have stuff they're going to have to figure out. But defensively, look, Edey, Jaren, Smart, and Bane on the roster with GG Jackson, he continues to ascend. And they got like a nice slew of young players on the roster too. So I think Ja has everything in front of him. And all Ja has to do, literally, is get out of his own way. And some of that is just maturity. As he gets older, your priorities change and your perspective on life changes. So I think that as he continues to accelerate mentally and emotionally in terms of his maturity level, he takes care of his business. He makes sure he's keeping it family and basketball. I think he can be really successful. And look, there is a period where people thought he was a top 15-ish player in the world. Right now, Jalen Brunson passed him up. Donovan Mitchell's been passed him up. Booker's been passed him up. Jaylen Brown's passed him up. Anthony Edwards has passed him up. There's a lot of players that have kind of moved along in the conversation of where they rank in the league, even some Trae Young for a lot of people. Ja Morant is the one that I think that can literally go from, oh man, like we just kind of like obscure Memphis Grizzly player team to all of a sudden the Grizzlies are back at the top of the West. And it's like, I don't know, man, like Ja Morant might be like the 10th or 12th best player in the league just because of what he provides. And I think whenever you, Nick, have a player that gets that much rim pressure, is that good of a passer, they just have the ability to affect the game in so many unique ways. And man, I would love to see what like a fringe MVP season from Ja would look like this year.
Well, his teammate Derrick Rose had a similar season when he won MVP and made All NBA in that one. He could do a similar season to that, I think. But when you have somebody that affects the rim that much and attacks the rim that much, it does kind of negate some of those spacing issues that a team could have. Because all of a sudden now, instead of just dealing with 3-point, shooting gravity like we talk about with Steph Curry, it's a lot of vertical gravity where, all right, we've got to follow Zach Edey to the rim. We've got to follow Ja Morant to the rim, try and catch up with him on these screens and things like that. We've only seen 6 games of the Ja Morant, Marcus Smart backcourt, and that's something I'm really interested to see this season. Well, if you are Ja Morant's coach, what would you tell him about playing with Marcus Smart and how that he should handle? I don't believe you shouldn't be here. Playing with Marcus Smart this season.
Yeah, Marcus Smart doesn't have a lot of off-ball value, so I'm going to be curious to see. He has some decent shooting years as a spot-up shooter, so really it's going to be about like Ja, like are we setting like some back screens for him, like some pin down screens, like, you know, how are we getting him in space? And really, Marcus is a good playmaker, so maybe they can utilize him as a cutter off ball, and that way they can continue to use that gravity to the rim. Ja can hit that floater. Doesn't have much of a mid range. He does have a floater, and he can finish going to the rim and even pass it out and get like a nice oop to Edie or to JJ. So they're going to have to figure out offensively how it works, but defensively, Ja Morant is going to have the easiest job that he could have ever have imagined, because Desmond Bane's a really good defender. And then Marcus Smart, I mean, this side of Drew Holiday and Derek White, maybe he might be the best on-ball defending guard outside of Alex Caruso, maybe in the Western Conference now. So if you got that caliber of player next to you, man, I mean, really, for me, it's just optimizing Ja on defense, making sure that he's playing those passing lanes, using athleticism, using his length. I think that should be what his main opportunity is, similar to Jason Tatum. But Jason's different. Jason is more, he's just an elite rim protector for a forward, and he's an elite wing defender, off-ball defender for a forward. And so the Celtics utilize him like that. Ja, not a terrific on-ball defender, but now because you have all these players around him that can take those responsibilities, so when he is off-ball, you can even leave him down at that 4 spot. That way he can try to take away some of the passing lanes to the rim. You know, I think they can just get a little creative with how they're going to deploy him on both ends.
This team has a lot that they can, gain this season. I think Ja Morant has a lot they can gain this season. You mentioned G.G. Jackson. I should mention that he broke his foot and he's going to have surgery, so he'll be out for a couple of months. But they still have a pretty deep team. We'll see what happens with Ja Morant and the Grizzlies this season. Go listen to Locked On Grizzlies with our guys DeMichael Cole and Joel Molinax, always covering the Grizzlies really well over there from great perspectives. Coming up, let's talk about the other players that have the most to gain. To me, Jalen Green has maybe the most financial gain that he can gain this season in the NBA. I'll tell you why coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action. Go to FanDuel and see what's available for you in your area. And while you're there, you've heard us talk about FanDuel. They're the number one sportsbook in America, but we have something different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need to do is go get a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. Visit FanDuel.com to download America's number one sportsbook. Also with FanDuel, we were talking about some of the Rookie of the Year odds. We mentioned Zach Edey earlier with the Grizzlies. Reed Shepherd and Zach Edey. We're talking about the Grizzlies. We're talking about the Rockets, and both of those, they're tied right now for number one in Rookie of the Year. So go check out everything else they have with FanDuel and go make sure you take advantage of that offer for NFL Sunday Ticket. FanDuel.com. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of this show. Being an everydayer, listening every day. We have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team every day, including Locked On Mavericks, where this week we're talking all kinds of different things. We talked about who has the most to prove on the Mavericks this season. We talked through some of our hills that we would die on. I think Derek Lively will be the second best player in his draft class. What are you guys talking about on Locked On Nuggets, Swipa?
Really just rotational stuff. Obviously right now, the Nuggets are in a true dead season. There's not a lot of news. Everybody's just kind of waiting on to see what's going to happen with Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, how Russell Westbrook is going to be integrated into the offense, how they're going to use Dario Saric and Jamal Murray, how real was the downfall that he had from the playoffs through the Olympics, and does he turn back up, and what kind of job is Nikola Jokic going to have to do to carry him back to the top of the conference again? And then, for me, if that's the case, Nick, and then everybody's saying the Nuggets are going to be losing more games this year. So if they win 55 games again, then why are they winning those games if they don't have another certified star on the roster? So I'm telling you, man, we're going to be right. I'm telling you, we're going to be right back to where we were. And Jokic's going to be at the top of the MVP board again. Everybody going to be like, oh, but he keeps winning. It's like, well, make up your mind. I don't understand. So the teams suck. They're projected to win 49 wins, and they're at the top of the conference again. So how does the math work? Help me understand. They got 5 rookie contracts in rotation, Nick. Help me understand.
I regret so much of what I just let Swipa loose on a Nuggets topic. Oh my gosh, it was a bad choice on this show. We're talking about the players who have the most to gain. The Nuggets. There are Nuggets that have the most to gain. Go listen to Locked On Nuggets for that. Today, I want to get into Jalen Green. Jalen Green is a restricted free agent at the end of this season. And I think and we've seen Franz Wagner get an extension. We've seen other guys get extensions. Jalen Green is not one of those players. I think that he has a ton to gain this season because the Rockets are making him prove it. The Rockets are making him go out there and prove what you got for us. All right, go show us that you can be maybe a fringe all-star or something like that. If he can do that, then all of a sudden the payday could be absolutely insane. If he has a season where all of a sudden we're talking about him, man, Jalen Green is an all-star replacement, 3 or 4 guys drop out or something like that, then all of a sudden he could be looked at as that guy. But Alfred Sengun has replaced him as the next guy for the Rockets, as that star for the Rockets, and a lot of us were waiting for them to do that with him. But with Jalen Green, what's the path that you see, Swipa, for him to get the biggest payday possible this season?
Well, look, his prototype is a scorer, and he has to score at a high level and score at least a league average level. He can't be catastrophic basement level efficiency. But because he's going to get the volume, let's say league average true shooting, say it's 58. If he has a 58 true shooting, averaging 26 per game on that team, let's say he gets 5 assists, 5 rebounds, somewhere around those numbers, you know what I mean? Because he's going to have the shot profile to do that because he's going to be their number 1 lead shot taker. Then maybe he gets it. Maybe it's not 26, maybe it's 24, maybe it's 23, who knows? But I just think that Jalen Green, if he's a league average efficient scorer, because of the fact that he's one of the most explosive athletes in the league, and on top of that, if he can turn that athleticism at all into any idea of an average defender, that's money. They're going to pay him a humongous bag to do that. But again, that's what you expect from the second overall pick. You want them to be able to utilize their athleticism on both ends of the court. Now, I hope he does it because I want every young player to be able to survive and to be able to cash out on this generational wealth that's in front of them. So let's hope that he does it. But I'm telling you right now, if he don't do it, I'm sorry. There's other players in that roster, including Reed Shepherd and Amen Thompson, that are going to be more than ready to take care of some of those responsibilities.
It's so strange with Jalen Green now because all of a sudden, so he comes in a second overall pick. He's the savior of the Rockets. He's like, all right, this is who we're building around. The post-Harden era starts with Jalen Green. We're going to start building this team around him. And now all of a sudden, they've got a foundation of these young guys you mentioned, but they also have older guys too. Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, they bring in Steven Adams this season. You've got some of those veterans, but then you also have all these young guys. Like, can Jalen Green eat enough to even get to what you were talking about? I don't know if he is going to get the shot profile this season, the same one that he got. We saw his second year, just shots per game.
Who leads him in shots, you think, this year?
Oh, so this last year, 2 years ago, he averaged 18 shots. Then it went down to 16 this season. Now it's like, all right, is it Sengun that averages the most shots per game for them? Is it, still probably, Jalen Green's still going to get a bunch of shots, but I don't know that he's getting like, all right, you get as many shots as you want today. Jalen, like the 20 shots in a game. Is that still coming for him with,
I don't think 20, but I think that's the thing. They're going to have such a dispersed offense. But my real question for you, Nick, on the other end of that, and why Jalen Green so important? Who else is a volume shot taker on their roster? Because Sengun even is not like a volume scorer. He's not. And he doesn't have a game yet. Like even the flamingo jumper and stuff he has. Like he just doesn't have like a he's a good post. He's growing to be a good post scorer. We saw that 45-point game he had on Wemby. So are we saying that he's going to be able to take the step for them? Because again, the Rockets want to be a playoff team next year.
Right. They got expectations now.
Right. What's the best outlet that they're going to have, that they're going to get the kind of transient scoring you're going to need to be able to win you with some of those fourth-quarter moments? Like who do you rely on?
Yeah, it's one of those things where now they have expectations, and so now you've got a bunch of players. Oh, the team wasn't good enough for Jalen Green to play winning basketball. All right, well that was the excuse. Okay, well now you've got all these players, but now they're going to start to take some of these shots. The Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson. Like you have all those guys now. They're going to be taking shots away from him, and so it is this weird thing where, all right, if Jalen Green is going to have this season where he gets the bag, like you mentioned, he's going to have to score at volume, and then put up gaudy numbers and be efficient in it. But maybe he can just average a decent amount of points, but really be efficient in it and prove his value in that way. But in that, it's going to be a real adjustment for him this season. And I don't think we saw him deal with that adjustment that well last season. Jackson Gatlin, Locked On Rockets, talked about that a lot last season, about how the adjustment from not having expectations to now having expectations kind of wore on Jalen Green.
Do you see him taking, well, let me ask you this. So with kind of how we know Ime Udoka, does he get is Ime going to prioritize him within the offense, you think, enough for him to be able to take this kind of leap we're talking about, or are they still going to have more? Like, where does he fall in the pecking order, do you think, based on where they are? I mean, do you feel more comfortable right now with maximizing Jalen Green, and not at the expense of, but prioritizing him ahead of Reed Shepherd, Amen Thompson, Torrey, Alperin, Jabari? Like, is he at the top of that list on how you're kind of build your roster around or your game plan around?
If I'm Ime, I'm putting Şengün first, and then it's probably Jalen Green second. But if all of a sudden Jabari takes some kind of step forward, and we've seen him have really good games where all of a sudden he's hitting a bunch of mid-range shots, and you go, oh my god, okay, I see the player that he can be in there. Reed Shepherd comes in, he's second favorite or tied for Rookie of the Year favorite this season. If he is all of a sudden this guy that can add some spacing, add some scoring on the outside, then all of a sudden that just eats away a little bit. And if Cam Whitmore could be like 75% of Jalen Green, then why do the Rockets have, I didn't
even say Cam Whitmore. So that's what I'm saying.
Why are they motivated to pay him?
That's what I'm saying, Nick. So help me understand. Like, because what are we doing with Camden? Like, what are we doing with Reed? What are we doing with Amen? Like, if Jalen, that's my only thing. Like, it's almost as if they're so log jammed with young wings that, is this within our best interest to pay him and give him this money, as opposed to, I legitimately think, and I'll be clear about this, I think Reed Shepherd is like a dog. I think Reed is going to be dirty. I think Amen is going to be dirty. I think that could be their backboard of the future. Now, some people are saying Amen's a 3. Cool. We'll see. Right now, they got Dylan Brooks. So, but dude, like, I think he feels pressure, I guess, if that financially, and I think also because of the way the roster's laid out.
He's got a lot of pressure on him. There's a lot of, all right, the Rockets are making him prove it, right? And I think that's why he's one of the players that has the most to gain. Coming up, let's play a game where we talk about the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. It's Counted Up. Coming up.
Count it up.
Big chicken, baby. Zion Williams and porn star.
Take that back. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
The coach of the champion Boston Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, went on Locked On Celtics. It's going to be on Locked On Celtics feed on Thursday and Friday. John Corrales posted a teaser of it. It's going viral right now. ESPN posted it. It's the number one post on NBA Reddit right now. Joe Mazzulla said this. This is a quote, and it's always weird when you start with a Joe Mazzulla quote because it could literally go any direction. Joe Mazzulla said this: "People are going to say the target's on our back, but I hope it's right on our forehead between our eyes. I hope I can see the red dot." My question is for you, Swipa. Do you believe in the coach speak of "we have a target on our back" thing after you win a title or after your team finds some success?
Nah, I mean, yeah, I think you should always have that because the Nuggets found that out real quick. You know, everybody was giving them their best shot. The Celtics, let me ask you this, because you're obviously you cover the Mavericks. You know, you're unbiased on this, obviously, because you didn't just play in the finals. Do you think that people are wowed? Like, do you think people like the NBA community, players, analysts, do you think they're actually wowed by the Celtics, even though they went 16-3, one of the most dominant regular seasons ever? Again, this is just not discrediting them. They were one of the most dominant postseason teams ever, but they also didn't play against Jimmy Butler, didn't play against Donovan Mitchell for 2 games, and then didn't play Jarrett Allen at all. Then played Howley for 2 games in the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Final, and then they played versus the Mavericks team that no one
injured Luka,
for the most part predicted to make the finals at all, and Luka was hampered to some degree, whatever, and he just didn't play well, just to be honest with you, whatever. Like, all that put together, do you think that are people just like, we don't really care?
I think people see them as like the 2004 Pistons, right? That team was like a collective where you go, oh, this is a real good team. We got a bunch of dudes in there. Whereas you see, or even like the 2015 Warriors, where before they had KD, it was Steph and Clay and Draymond, and it was them together. They kind of pushed David Lee out of the way, and then all of a sudden the team became what it was going to become. I think we look at that Celtics team as a an amazing collection of talent. But I know there is something about not having that one alpha guy. And we were going to mention, we thought about mentioning Jason Tatum and the players that have the most to gain earlier. We were talking about that because we think if he really goes out there and shows some kind of MVP type season, then he could gain a lot in the public eye as well. Jalen Brown kind of snatched that away from him all throughout the playoffs when he was Eastern Conference Finals MVP, Finals MVP. Jason Kidd said that he was the best player on the Celtics. So you had that whole kind of thing where there wasn't that one alpha guy, the Kobe, the Jordan, the LeBron, the somebody to look at. And so I think that's why they're not really striking the fear in the hearts of a lot of people right now, and they're not sort of wowing in the same way that, like, the reason why you asked that question.
Well, yeah, it's that, but I also think too, there's so much like there's these people that hate on the Celtics, and I think Tatum's one of the top 8 to 9 players in the league. But even people think I'm too low on him. Many people do. There's also the other side of this equation where there are people that think he's a top 3 player, top 4 player, but don't hold him to the expectation because,
right,
he won, points, rebounds, and assists, NBA Finals. It's like, Magic, Bird, LeBron, and Jokic and Tatum or whatever. Look at the list of players he's on. I'm like, yeah, bro, but no one thinks he's one of those players. So there's like this chasm between reality, I think, for what he actually is. And I genuinely believe, Nick, if Tatum went out there next year, 28, 7, 5, with a 61 true shooting and great defense, didn't have these crazy lows as a jump shooter and all that stuff, consistently was able to hit 38% of his shots on, he's going to take 9 a game. And he was a good playmaker, kept the turnovers down. He played smart basketball. He was one of the best closers in the league because he hasn't been the last couple of years in the regular season. If he does that stuff, then Tatum's going to be right where he needs to be.
That's like almost exactly what he did last year, though.
But I know. But the issue is that there are multiple times you can point to, but also, I think this speaks to Tatum, but also the rest of the league. The league is just really good.
There's a lot of really good. There's a lot of really good star players right now. He was 6th in MVP, and that was probably right where he should have been.
It's hard to break to the top because then you get Jalen Brunson out of nowhere who's leading the Knicks on a revolution.
You always got to remind me about that. Bam Adebayo was recently given the keys to the city of Miami. There was a special guest there supporting him, and Bam kind of got hard. Bam and a certain someone kind of got hard launched today by the mayor of Miami.
Yeah, Aja Wilson. And she won gold in women's basketball. I guess that has something to do with Bam and the Heat, huh? Being here today. Well, we are super proud. We're going to be presenting the keys in a moment.
Yeah, so Bam Adebayo and Asia Wilson kind of got hard launched today by the Miami mayor. They've been seen a lot together lately. They've been seen leaving places, kind of like staggered at different times. The Aces played in Vegas the night before this happened, and then they played in Connecticut on Friday, so she had a couple days off, but definitely went out of her way to go be there for Bam Adebayo. So my question is for you, though. Do you care about an NBA WNBA relationship like this?
Is this Locked On NBA or Love Island NBA? I'm trying to figure out which show I'm on. I think as a fan of both of them, I love Bam. If everyone knows, I've had an agenda to get Bam to Denver for several years now. This is not new. This is old news. I have said Aja Wilson's the best player in the world. I think that anyone is interested in having like the top of her sport and then a top 25 player on the other end. Of course, everybody wants to know, oh, are y'all official? But we know, and I'll say Black Twitter has been known. This has been a thing that everybody's aware of what's happening. They're showing all the behaviors of whatever, and so, but that's their business. Respect to them. All I do is I hope that both of them are individually happy with whatever decision that they decide to make, and then I hope that they both prosper in life, Nick. That's my well wishes for Aja Wilson and Bam Adebayo.
If this can just turn into people pronouncing Aja Wilson more correctly, then that's great. What
are people saying?
Aja. It's like Asia. Oh. It's supposed to be Asia. Like you're supposed to. It's like Asia almost, like the continent. Mm-hmm. It even says on our basketball reference page. It even says Asia, like the continent. Right next to her name. Yeah, no, I think this is cool, but yeah, it's their own business. Decide whatever you guys want to do. That's great. But I thought it was really funny that to a lot of people, I had seen
the mayor. Yeah, the mayor hard launched them. Yeah,
this is pretty funny that not exposed because she was there in public and all that, but still, now it's going viral all over the place. All right, last one. The Philadelphia 76ers are seriously considering relocating to New Jersey, the New Jersey Philadelphia 76er Nets. The reality is we are running out of time to reach an agreement that will allow the Sixers to open our new home in time for the 2031-32 season. As a result, we must take all potential options seriously, including this one. My question is, seriously? There's no way we don't have a basketball team in Philadelphia, right? Like, how could they possibly? This is just holding a city hostage, right?
What is this, like the fourth largest market in the NBA or whatever? Maybe fifth? Like, no. You're not moving the 76ers out of Philadelphia. Sure, they haven't won anything irrelevant since the 1980s. Sure, they haven't had a top 25 player since Moses Malone and Dr. J. Sure, they haven't done anything past the second round since the Sacramento Kings were relevant back in the 2000s. Sure, all those things are true. Sure, they are run by an owner and management that, doesn't always know what they're doing. Sure, they let Jimmy Butler walk for no reason. But why would I get rid of the Philadelphia 76ers? They're literally a staple in the league. When you think about the league, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Celtics, and the 76ers maybe?
I mean, you start thinking about historic, you're like, all right, Dr. J, can you build the story of the league without that? No, definitely not.
Right. No way. That sounds like capitalism at its best, is what it sounds like.
It's wild. I cannot imagine the New Jersey 76ers. Like that makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah. The next thing you know, we're going to get the Louisiana Mavericks.
I mean, if you like, it is kind of weird if you don't live on the East Coast. New Jersey is so close to Philadelphia. It's, we have Dallas-Fort Worth, right? Where you have,
but the cultures are completely different between Philly and New Jersey. Completely different.
But it is funny when some of
those 76ers, right?
It is funny when some of those are like, yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they play in Arlington. It's 30-minute drive away from downtown Dallas. It's like, okay.
Yeah, for branding purposes, it's better to say the Dallas Cowboys as opposed to Arlington.
The Arlington. Cowboys. Yeah, no. I think that's garbage. I think that's just, they're holding a city hostage to try and get a new stadium for the 2031-32 season and all that.
Well, you know what's funny about that? Why in the world does the public have to pay for your stadium if it's a privately owned business? The public doesn't benefit from this other than they say, well, it's job creation, it's this, the economy. There you get access to it for tournaments and concerts and all that. But why? So you invest taxpayer money. I don't see any of the royalties for this place at all. It doesn't do anything. If anything, Nick, my property tax is going to go up because of this stadium. So this is what I'm trying to figure out. Like, how is this the public's responsibility to do this? How do you get the bully, mostly people that make $60,000 and less, into paying for a stadium when it's the billionaire who wants it in the first place? I don't know.
Because they have before. The precedent has been set, and that's the problem right there. Is that the precedent has been set, and they can get away with it, and so they will try to get away with it. Let us know in the comment section which NBA player has the most to gain this season. Go listen to Locked On Nuggets with Swipa and them over there. Some great stuff all the time. So go check out Locked On Nuggets. Go check out Locked On Mavs. Me and Slightly Biased all doing all kinds of stuff, telling our NBA hot takes. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.